Well, this is going to be a largely useless information. So we all know about responsive design. So we make it smaller, and then we get a different kind of nav. Wow! And we make it smaller again. Oh, the text has changed size, which is great. But this particular problem is something you're probably not going to encounter. But when you make a text wrap, when it's really narrow, it doesn't really. If you're doing that on mobile, it doesn't really matter a toss. But when you're dealing with instruction sets, when you've got line by lines, short kind of, this is what you need to do, then you need to do this, which is applies to manuals with steps in them. And as soon as lines start wrapping, it's very difficult to understand what's going on. So this applies to like a manual for a game. So if we look over here in the markdown, is there a good example somewhere? So anyway, well this is a really lame example, but this is lack of preparation. So you've got a line there, an item like a step to do, and then you've got brackets. I should have used my cursor, not with my finger to find out things. So you've got a set of brackets, and look at that trailing word there. And then that's a particularly terrible example, but there are others where when you've got like a long line, which is like a standalone thing, this is what you should do next, and you've now split it across 3 lines, and then there's tons of other steps, and when you're dealing with mobile, which you've got hardly any space to put in all this information on a fairly narrow width, and you want to fit the whole thing on the line preferably to make it easy to understand. You can do stuff like bumping down the text size, and if I go to the simulator to make most stuff fit, this kind of thing, like this fits on the line perfectly kind of thing. But other places, you want to start having these kind of like intelligent breaks. Oh God, I'm halfway through already. I thought this was really quick. So there's
the guideline.
all right. So the bullshitty title, which we didn't announce, was kind of, instead of just responsive design, this is kind of responsive copywriting. So you could change what the content is displayed depending on the width of the screen. So, for instance, this is a markdown file which generates the manual and does some other things as well, which I will quickly deviate towards. So you can do stuff, boring stuff like these little characters and stuff like that. Like it's basically very tiny typography. You can start doing. You have markdown there, and then you do lots of grep and replacing, and so you start wrapping all these individual characters. What you want to display slightly differently. So all these kind of like units and stuff are displayed differently. There's like pretty much everything on the screen is wrapped. So you've got the pluses, the zeros, and you can start doing fine tuning typography, which you don't really have control over using kind of standard web fonts, unless you kind of put in quite a lot of markup soup to do that. But that's not the interest. That's not really the main interesting thing. So the interesting thing is by chucking in some extra kind of characters into markup to do extra stuff. So all this kind of like small little kind of lookup library here. If you put these little characters in and using the amazing powers of regex, it will then start making lines wrap in fancy places. So here, if we make it smaller and smaller, if we look at this line around here, we go smaller and smaller and smaller, and then this is a very lame example, but I hope it kind of illustrates the point. So the brackets here before contained something longer, and now we're dealing with a narrow width. We've displayed something different. And then the second point which I wanted to make was, if I go further down. So here, time stick here. If we're on wide mode, no, that's not right. So the one above, show vacant accommodation, we've got brackets on the same line, 14 seconds. And if we go smaller and smaller and smaller, it chomps down again. Oh no, that's not the example I want to show. Right, here we go. So starting market, we've got some words and we've got some brackets. And as we get narrow, we can see that the brackets is what it decides to chuck down onto the next line. And not only that, it will put, like, you can control the indent level of it. So you could chuck on a new line if you wanted, or you can start like nesting stuff. So you can start. It's kind of like if you let it up to the browser to put in breaks where it wanted to, it just does. It does like a crazy hash job of it. So by putting all these extra special kind of proprietary characters, which then get translated by regex, you can start doing these really clever manuals, which kind of do this kind of thing. I hope the hand's going to illustrate the point there. But that's it, I think.